Hey guys, it's Mount Walk, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about ATS. Yep, this is another Survival of the Fittest video for Premodern, and this time we're looking at Angry Tradewind Survival. So yeah, this should be a good one. I came up with a pretty sweet list, one that I liked quite a bit. I looked at a lot of the older lists from Legacy and stuff like that. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. I got pretty excited once I sort of figured out what I could do and stuff. So yeah, definitely a good thing. So I got a little bit of beer, got some beer here, and so strap in, get yourself a nice drink, something, maybe tea, or if it's in the morning, tea or coffee. If it's in the afternoon, maybe a beer, maybe a nice beer, maybe a Moscow Mule, something delicious. Anyways, let's go ahead, let's drink our beer. That's right, and let's get started. All right. So this is, of course, Survival of the Fittest deck, and well, just like all the survival decks, we got a lot of 1-0s, a lot of singletons. But unlike a lot of other survival decks, this one actually does pretty well just by itself without needing survival. You can thank Tradewind Rider for that. That guy is sweet. I mean, holy crap. So this deck is sweet. It's just toolbox all over the place, but it's pretty consistent. It does a lot of cool stuff. Definitely got some like land destruction stuff going on, and answers to artifacts and enchantments and recursion. Does everything. Does everything. So yeah. Let's freaking get into it. All right, so here we go. Oh boy, look at all these cards. Holy moly. I don't even I don't even know where to start. Well, let's see. Let's just go with creatures. First and foremost, this is a Tradewind Rider sort of style deck, and we want four of those guys. We want a lot of mana, so we got birds and wall of roots and stuff. Wall of blossoms, of course. The walls are sweet. I love them in this format. They're great for blocking. Awesome against aggressive decks of any stripe. So we're rolling out with our walls. Then we got tons of like toolbox stuff, which we'll go over a little bit. Then of course got the Force Survival. Then we have some interaction with Mana Leak and Fire Ice, and the Mana Base, where I'm not 100% sure if I want 2 or 3 City of Brass and 0 or 1 Undiscovered Paradise. It's pretty sweet though. Like I like Undiscovered Paradise a lot, and obviously having multiple City of Brass is kind of a pain. So not 100% sure about that one, but I'll figure it out. Figure it out. And of course, the sideboard. There's a lot of stuff that you can just sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's mutable. You can change it. But there's a lot of really good stuff. I'm not really sure about my artifact hate and enchantment hate. It's kind of all over the place. With like a null, wood ripper, naturalize, um, and null rod, of course, too. So yeah, all over the place. The only stuff I would definitely play at least 1 or 2 Winter Orbs, because those are sweet against like all the other sort of like mirror matches or board control decks or all sorts of things like that. And of course, something like Sabo's Web might be nice. It's pretty good against land still, which is pretty sweet. Cantrips, that kind of good stuff. Um, yeah, I like the Spike Feeder just because I like having another dude to tutor up for life gain against red decks and stuff like that. And it can make other things bigger, so that's pretty cool too. And I like playing with the Spike cards, so you could also play like Spike Weaver too. That's a classic survival card. But I like just Spore Frog a little bit better, in as much as that it's cheaper to frog lock people than with like say casting Spike Weaver and stuff. But you know, um, Spike Weaver's good though, obviously. So yeah, I just like Frog. I like Spore Frog. It's so sweet. And how often do you get to play with cards from Prophecy? Well, actually, in this format, quite often. Chimeric Idol's pretty sweet, actually. Chimeric Idol's really good. I love Chimeric Idol. But I guess that's neither here nor there. I'm getting kind of off topic. So let's go ahead and get into some of the sort of nitty gritty. Okay, so this is Angry Tradewind Survival, and obviously you already know about the Tradewind Rider part, but what's the anger part? Well, it's literally anger. The angry part is the anger the incarnation, and so you need a mountain for that. But again, don't have dual lands in this format. But we do have an excellent card called Croson Tusker, one of my favorite cards recently. I've just been putting it into everything. Um, so we can't recurring nightmare it back like we can in like the rock and other stuff like that. One of my favorite interactions, but you can keep getting this guy back with Genesis and stuff. And when you cycle him, he's of course uncounterable. So it's a lot faster to activate this guy to get your mountain than say Yabimaya Elder or something. So it's really sweet. He's a boar beast. Really awesome art. I mean, and late game, of course, he's just like a giant fatty. So that's kind of sweet. So yeah, he pretty much does it all. Does it all. So it makes it easier for us to turn on anger because we can survival up this guy, cycle it, and then bam, there we go. We're off to the races, right? Um, so yeah, we got Avalanche Riders. This guy's sweet. Um, a lot of times I don't really pay the echo, so I can just recur it with Genesis, but sometimes you just use it to block. Anyways, it's basically well, it's a stone rain on a stick, and you can get in for extra damage. You can use it with Tradewind Rider and bounce it and blah blah blah. Just so you can just do a million things with Avalanche Riders. It's sweet. I always like. Um, I like being able to play with this kind of stuff. It's got Echo. How many times can you play with the Echo cards? Oh, I love it. So many good Echo cards too, actually. Of course, and we got Mystic Snake. This guy is sweet. I mean, obviously you can lock people out with Tradewind Rider and him. I mean, well, lock them out in as much as like say if you have like if they're low on mana and stuff, they won't be able to cast more than one spell a turn, so you can Mystic Snake them every turn. And if they don't play anything, you can just eventually just Tradewind Rider all their permanents and stuff. And I love Mystic Snake. Look at that. It's gonna get you. Its fangs are in your flesh, bro. And then Tradewind Rider, of course, sort of what the deck is really all about, is great. It turns all of the random crap you have on board into like boomerangs, which is awesome. This card is sweet. It's huge. It's a 4-mana 1/4, so not only can it block, but then it can also do stuff and tap or whatever. So like it's hard to kill. It's got 4 toughness, so it's hard to bolt. So it's almost always card advantage or some sort of tempo thing, bounce and stuff. I mean, playing for this guy's so good. Just play him out early as a blocker. They'll have to spend a lot to do it, to kill him, get rid of him, and if they don't, you can start blocking and bouncing stuff. You bounce himself. I mean, it does everything. It's so good. It's really fun card. Gives you answers to all sorts of everything. You can lock people out, and holy moly, just does it all. It does it all. All right. And so probably the thing that I had the most like sort of eureka moment, I was like, wait, I'm playing like a blue red deck. I don't actually have to play Bolt or something. I can actually just play Fire Ice. So you won't always have perfect mana all the time. So being able to cast your like, instead of having Lightning Bolt, you can, you have Fire Ice, so you can ice stuff, whereas Lightning Bolt would be dead, of course. Ice is not. And of course, if you have red mana, this thing can be card advantage. You can kill 2 toughness stuff. Not being able to kill random 3 toughness stuff is not a big deal. You have walls for that. You can bounce stuff or whatever. But the upside on this, I think, is just so much better than something like Bolt. This card advantage, being able to tap lands during their upkeep. If you're LDing them and stuff, and it card pops. Taps big creatures like from Reanimator, so you can. I mean, it just does everything, friggin' everything. It's one of my favorite cards, and I'm always happy to play it. It does so much, and any blue-red deck, I'm always trying to just jam this thing in because like it's so frequently like a 2-for-1. It's like never dead. One of my favorite removal spells ever. Okay, so one of the big things about a lot of survival decks is it plays Genesis, and Genesis will let you recur all sorts of things. So of course, we mentioned earlier, we got Spore Frog. Look at that cute little dude, ready to make people well, be really frustrated and sad. So Spore Frog is sweet. Um, Great against aggro decks, of course. You'll board it out sometimes against control decks and stuff. Not always the best there, but just depends. Ravenous Baloth, of course, our big boy. Oh, I think I kind of want like another one, just so you can get like just multiple Baloths on board is so sweet, because they're just huge, and the game's life, and 4 mana 4/4 is pretty dang good. And then we got Elvish Lyrist. Of course, this is just your recurable enchantment kill thing, so that's pretty sweet. So yeah, anything with like a sacrifice or goes to the graveyard or whatever kind of thing. Obviously, pretty good with Genesis. Pretty good with Genesis. In case that wasn't obvious, right? Like, things in your graveyard are good with Genesis, so who would have thought? Who would have thought, right? Okay, and that's not it. This deck has tons and tons and tons of interactions. Whew, I'm just getting so excited thinking about all this tricky stuff you can do. It's like playing like Death and Taxes, but on crack, because you can do anything, right? You got so much stuff going on. Oh boy. Okay, so we got Quirion Ranger. This card is sweet. So this obviously has anything with a tap ability. It has really excellent synergy with. Of course, Quirion Ranger will also produce mana. So if you haven't played your land for the turn, you can tap your forest and then return the forest to your hand, replay it, and tap for more mana to untap stuff. And so that's pretty sweet. So it's like a mana producer. It can occasionally, I guess, if someone Armageddons, you can save a land, that kind of stuff. So that's sweet, but the untap thing is really good with Goblin Sharpshooter primarily. So that means you can, not only do you get to just kill every X1, but Quirion Ranger will let you kill the like a one of their X2s every turn. So pretty sweet. It's good with birds. Birds is well, just produce more mana, which is awesome. I like more mana. And with your big creatures, say for example Masticore, you can basically give it vigilance. And so like it's one of those things that people can walk into if they're not careful. You have so much onboard interaction and tricky stuff, you know. So yeah, Masticore pretty sweet. Any big creature, of course, is good. Giving it pseudo vigilance is pretty awesome. Quirion Ranger does everything, and I love it. I friggin' love it. Okay, so there's also I was thinking about playing like a couple Living Wish. Um, I haven't tested it out yet, but the deck is super mana hungry, and so I'd like a Gaia's Cradle, but like you can draw a Cradle at the wrong time or whatever, and it's kind of bad. Um, and you know that kind of also means you have to play like a crop rotation or whatever, and so it's like ugh, I still want to get a Guy's Cradle, but with Living Wish you can always Living Wish for it, have it in your sideboard. This does eat up sideboard space, but things like Ravenous Baloth or whatever, a lot of times you'll want to have them in your board anyways. At least in my opinion, I think you should just have them more just for the aggro matchups and stuff. So yeah, being able to Living Wish for more fatties or like a combo card like Seedborn Muse. Obviously, Seedborn Muse plus Tradewind Rider is pretty sweet, and it's like a 2/4, which is hard to kill for some decks. And of course, Kamal, which is just good with random stuff in play. You can overrun. Um, but yeah, really, I think these decks so mana hungry that being able to have access to a Cradle would be pretty nice. So I don't know. Something to think about. Also, Kamal. Who doesn't want to play with Kamal? I love this guy. I mean, I should probably mention that his synergy with Goblin Sharpshooter is pretty funny. It's more LD. Of course, you can with a bunch of green mana, you can turn your own lands into creatures and then overrun. Oh, so cool. So friggin' cool. I love Kamal. I friggin' love Kamal. Also, I like Seedborn Muse too, and Ravenous Baloth and Gaia's Cradle. Those are all awesome cards. Super fun. Oh man. So like, look, we just got a million things to do. Um, Opposition, Squirrel Nest, that whole thing. There, I could see playing like a singleton copy of Opposition main deck just because it's pretty sweet. It's like another copy of Trade Wind Rider in some ways. It's pretty awesome. Uh, Squirrel Nest, same thing. Being able to produce random 1/1s is nice, and then just more cards to go with Trade Wind Rider or Opposition is pretty nice. Maybe a fourth color. You'd have to have more color fixing, more Crows and Tuskers. Although I kind of feel like I want more Crows and Tuskers anyways. But fourth color for like say Swords or Enlightened Tutor could be good. Our black, of course, will give you stuff like duress and therapy and stuff. But that might be pushing it too much. But it's something to think about. Excuse me. Already mentioned Siegeborn Muse. That card is super sweet. Obviously, maybe some more removal, maybe more FTKs main deck. It seems like there's quite a bit already, but then stuff like Blood Moon back to basics, just more random hosers might be kind of nice. Blood Moon more than anything, I think, but they're all kind of good. But yeah, more mana denial stuff is good. A Dwarven Blast Miner is pretty sweet, one of my favorite cards, and that would be a cool one. Mana War is just like another bouncy guy. I mean, obviously some redundancy with Trade Wind Rider, but it's still kind of cool. I love Mana War, so I might just play it just for that. Hystrodon, one of my favorite green cards. It's a beast, which is sweet, and it also just draws cards, which is, well, sweet. Thinking about maybe another Llanowar Elves, because Llanowar Elves is so sweet. The deck is super mana hungry, so having more mana dorks is really nice. Blastoderm, pretty sweet against control decks. It's huge. You can recur it with Genesis, and it's like hasty Blastoderms are sweet. Just deal so much damage, and pretty much nothing can really rumble with them, except like the biggest creatures in the format, which are not always played everywhere. Then Orcish Settlers, this is kind of a nice one, like late game if like you had a Cradle and play. Orcish Settlers is pretty sweet. You can just literally one-sided Armageddon, which is pretty awesome. Then you have stuff like Chrome Shell Crab, which is basically another Gilded Drake, but you don't need to have to bounce the Gilded Drake, because it's kind of a 2-mana 3/3 flyer is kind of a threat. But you can trade like your wall for like their really good creature, so that's kind of funny. Like think about your wall of roots with like 2 or 3 counters on it, and like okay, you can have that. I'll take your Acroma or something, right? That's kind of cool. I love Chrome Shell Crab, and it's a crab beast, I believe. Go figure. Look, a lot of blue beasts in Onslaught block. Pretty weird. And then, of course, there's also stuff like Siege Gang or Deranged Hermit. Leaning more towards Deranged Hermit, that card is super sweet, and it's easier to cast, obviously, than Siege Gang, but Siege Gang is additional reach, which is pretty nice. So yeah, either or, both are good with Genesis. Both are, kind of Army in a Can cards, which are pretty nice. Good for recovering after rafts and stuff like that. Thinking about Winter Orb, maybe a copy of Winter Orb main deck would be nice. Frees up sideboard space, and it's just a good card. That would be more or less fits in your game plan against any deck. And so having just one copy and then boarding in extras seems pretty sweet. And I love Winter Orb, of course. Like I mentioned earlier, Croson Tusker. I'm just talking so much. My mouth is so dry. I'm going crazy, getting so excited. Okay, Croson Tusker. There we go. This card is awesome. It is so sweet. Gives you a card advantage. It's like a green inspiration, but it's like uncounterable. And it's split card. It's like a 6/5 when you have a bajillion mana, which is awesome. I really like Croson Tusker, and of course that really helps you get your mountain, your Singleton Mountain for turning on anger, which is really nice. And then of course Opposition, Squirrel Nest, mentioned those earlier. Those could be nice as singletons. You don't really want a ton of them. I mean, Opposition is somewhat redundant, but it's kind of nice, and you don't really want more than one. But it's sweet. It is sweet. I already said all about Squirrel Nest. It's pretty sweet. It's pretty great against aggro decks. Like it's you know, the ceiling, or excuse me, the floor on a card like Squirrel Nest is pretty high. Obviously, it's very, very slow, but making extra stuff and for Tradewind Rider or just beating down or blocking duty, so sweet, so sweet. Like I said, sideboard, there's a billion, jillion, trillion different things. So we got Rootwater Thief. I think that might be kind of cool as a blue creature to disrupt aggressive decks. That's pretty sweet. Or excuse me, disrupt aggressive decks to take care of like combo decks. Start stripping cards out of there. That can be pretty nice. Then we got stuff like Gigapede. Gigapede like is pretty sweet against control decks because it just keeps coming back and they can't plow it. So that's pretty cool. I like Gigapede. Artifact Mutation is really good against like a lot of Tinker decks and stuff. I mean, makes tons and tons of dudes. So has great synergy with something like Opposition, of course, or Tradewind Rider, of course, which is I love it. I friggin' love it. Nostalgic Dreams is pretty nice. It gets you back all sorts of cool different cards. You don't really have there's like restock or whatever, but I think Nostalgic Dreams is just best because you can regrowth all the, you know, a couple different cards, discard a couple things, and it's so sweet. So it might be cool as a one of versus like control decks and stuff. So that would be pretty interesting. Especially if you're, you know, regrowing like just really powerful like bomby cards like your Winter Warp or something. That'd be sweet. Mentioned Sabo's Web earlier, but yeah, mostly against land still. Maybe too narrow. Maybe we just want a Winter Orb in that place. Then of course there's tons and tons of color hosers, spreading algae, algae, whatever. Compost, the aforementioned Back to Basics Blood Moon, stuff like Choke. Obviously there's a little bit more dis-synergy with the islands in our deck, so maybe not Choke, but just depends. Chill, of course, but obviously for Chill, like we have our own red cards, so I think just running out with Hydro Blast or Blue Blasts or something. Then of course Waterfront Bouncer. Bouncer is really good against Oath decks, which is pretty sweet. So that might be something to consider. And then of course another Squee to like just support things like so if you want to like survival and then also have a card for discarding Demasticore and stuff. So that could be good. Not 100% sure. Maybe it's just too redundant. And this deck is one of the reasons I like the deck is that it pretty much has game against anything, and then sideboards pretty heavily to deal with other random crap. Mostly combo decks are the big problem. You can do everything else. You shouldn't have a big deal. So stuff like Crypt against any of the graveyard combo decks, or Null Rod against like any of the big mana artifact decks, or any artifact-based combo deck. Null Rod is pretty awesome. And then of course we have like the annul and naturalizes and stuff like that. Pretty sweet. Yeah, the only big problem I've seen with like pretty much most of the decks, like the survival decks, are a little bit slow, sometimes inconsistent a little bit, especially if they don't get survival. But this deck does a pretty good job because just getting like a bunch of random dudes plus Tradewind Rider is good enough. It does a lot of sweet stuff. Yeah, and Tradewind Rider himself is just hilariously just fat. Just this 1/4 is just kind of silly. But hey, there we go. So yeah, outside of like combo decks, um, and yeah, mostly just combo decks and stuff. Maybe some of the ramp decks. Um, you pretty much can beat anything. I feel very comfortable playing against anything else, just because you have all those walls against aggressive decks, and they also do so much. Obviously, you can bounce Wall of Blossoms a bunch to draw cards. You can use Wall of Roots on your opponent's turn to survival, which is really sweet. And then just being in play, just being another creature, is very good with Tradewind Rider, of course. You can take advantage of that. Yeah, so I feel pretty comfortable against everything. You can just pretty much just given enough time, you can just lock anyone out, bounce all their crap, kill their stuff, that kind of thing. So yeah, maybe I need to play more land, or more, probably just like more, one or two more like Croson Tuskers, another Croson Tusker, maybe like another Llanowar Elf, maybe take out some of the removal, maybe that's a little redundant. Or Fintorn Elf. Fintorn Elf too. They're all the same. Doesn't really matter too much, but yeah. So that's pretty much what I would do. I really like the deck, and it's like super fun to play. You can just do anything, and that's really cool. So I'll friggin' drink to that. Yep, like any survival deck, they're very easy to customize. Depends on your metagame, what you expect. But this is really fun, really fun. If you haven't played with Tradewind Rider, I suggest you do so, because it's sweet. So, yep, that's pretty much it, guys. So there's just so much you can do with this deck. I hope you had a good time listening to me ramble on. So that's it, guys. So thank you for stopping by, and have a great day.